In the early decades of the 20th century, there were few paved roads in Vermont. Even in the larger towns, streets were usually little more than hard-packed dirt. Venturing out into the hills and valleys, a motorist had to be prepared for anything. Though many roads were solid and relatively smooth, others could be jarringly rough, and deep sand or mud could challenge the most intrepid driver. Of the old road between Stratford and Chelsea, Mortimer Proctor wrote, "Oftentimes one of us was compelled to walk ahead to determine, if possible, where the road used to be." A good driver in a solid car might cover 100 miles in a day, but often it was much less. Mortimer's daily average for the entire tour was 89 miles. Of course, his purpose was sightseeing, not speed. But his average speed, dictated by road conditions, would leave most modern travelers pounding the wheel in impatient frustration. But given the occasional bad road and lack of road signs, or guideposts as they were called back then, he managed to visit a number of small towns and out-of-the-way places in the state, and he's left us with a remarkable pictorial record of how Vermont and Vermonters looked a century ago. The first settlers in Vermont were by necessity farmers. With no supermarkets or trucked-in foods, what they and their animals ate was only what they could grow, hunt, or catch. From the broad, relatively flat expanses of the Champlain Valley to the rugged, stony hill farms of Chelsea and Shrewsbury, generations of Green Mountain folk have drawn their livelihood from the soil. It was a life of almost unremitting toil, requiring the cooperative efforts of family, friends, and neighbors. Before the advent of the internal combustion engine, almost the only sources of energy beyond their own bodies were draft animals, and well into the 20th century, Vermont farmers continued to rely on oxen and horses for the hardest jobs. It's easy to forget in this day of powerful tractors and comfortable cars that for Vermonters 100 years ago, there was no such thing as a quick trip to town. Depending on the errand, it might involve a buggy or wagon, harnesses, and the cooperation of one or more large animals, whose care and feeding was a major job in itself. Much like the rest of the world, the past 100 years have brought extraordinary changes to Vermont. Though a few dirt roads remain in use, electricity, phone service, and paved roads have found their way into every corner of the state. The automobile has had a huge impact on the landscape and people of Vermont, making lives easier, if not always better. Power equipment and scientific methods have vastly increased agricultural output while reducing the number of farmers to a tiny percentage of the population. Still, Vermont retains a certain rustic, unhurried charm. Thanks to enlightened policies, much of the land remains open and uncluttered without the depressing sameness of endless miles of strip malls, housing developments, and billboards. From the charming small towns to the lakes and mountains, an observant visitor can still find traces of the past in the Vermont of today. Few of us today would willingly give up our modern conveniences and go back to the life of a century ago. But it's good to look back now and again on the images of those who lived that life and honor them for their labors, their fortitude, and their love for the Green Mountain State.